opening slide?
Nope, sorry.
That's okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the next one.
All right. Oop, hold on a second.
Okie doke. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This is our first community meeting for Enright Park, and my name is Andrea Ketzel. I'm the Senior Landscape Architect for the Department of Public Works. I'm also joined by Kara Smith, who is a project manager for DPW. Tonight we're going to be starting out by introducing the rest of the project team. Going over the project timeline and reviewing our findings from the Enright Park Master Plan. We'll also get into a few design concepts that have been developed for the park by the design team, and then go into breakout rooms for discussion around the concepts, and then come back to the larger group and share some of the key takeaways from those breakout groups. Then we'll talk about next steps for the project. So next slide, thanks. As I mentioned before, this project is led by the City of Pittsburgh's Department of Public Works, and the city issued a scope of work to our on-call professional consultants to solicit proposals for the project. We selected the design firm Pashik MTR as the consultant, and we're joined by Sarah Thompson, Eric Reitman, and Keely McDonald, who are going to speak to the design concepts in just a bit. So next slide. In 2018, the Department of City Planning completed the Enright Park Master Plan along with the consultant studio Brian Haynes, which laid the framework for the implementation of this project. The red circle that you see in the middle of the screen represents the first of 2 community meetings that we'll be holding for the design portion of the project before we get into construction documents and permitting. And the plan is to begin construction by late summer of next year. Next slide. So we wanted to highlight some of the key takeaways from the master plan report, which include the following. Preserve as many large trees as possible and plant new trees. Create open, flexible park for all. Keep or augment the existing program, basketball courts, playground, spray park, and open lawn. Provide a variety of seating options. Respect the residential character and provide buffers, provide a small shelter, and include bike racks and a water fountain. So this is just a rendering from the master plan, which shows the potential locations for the amenities identified in the master plan. You can see the full court basketball court to the north, and a half court multi-purpose court underneath that. There is a playground space that includes a spray feature area where the whale will be reincorporated, and a small picnic pavilion amongst the open lawn and the seating options, and the pedestrian connections to the surrounding community. So with that sort of refresher, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah Thompson with Pashik MTR to review the design concepts for the project.
Thanks, Andrea. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So what we did was take the master plan, which created a very good start and provides, like Andrea said, that overall framework for going into more design detail. And so we took that program from the master plan and started to create a couple of variations of different designs using that program from the master plan. And so if I can orient everybody here, here's the proposed development north of the park. We've got South Euclid Avenue on the right-hand side, South Negley on the left-hand side here. This is going to be the new Eva Street coming through. Right now, it kind of goes through this this proposed green space, but it's being moved to the north. And so our park really starts at this corner of Negley and the new Eva Street here. And so we've got kind of these small strips of land before we get to the main part of the park. And so the idea here with this concept, by the way, is called Community Confluence. Starts off with an entrance sign, perhaps some seat walls, and basically moving the existing concrete walk into the middle of this green space, planting some trees along Eva Street, creating kind of a tree alley was what we typically call that, and providing a nice wide sidewalk coming down and then coming into this corner of the park. The main park features, you would come down through a main path, again, maybe replicating some of that seat wall design language that's at the corner there. These little brown squares are representative of benches. So coming down this main path into what we call the core gathering space here. And so we've got a pavilion in this red square here, some natural seating areas, a water fountain, trash receptacle and recycling receptacle, an area over here for perhaps some pavement games like Foursquare and other things like that. We've got the playground nestled in this corner, close to Topaz Street. This is where the existing basketball court is currently. And then a small splash pad kind of adjacent to the playground. Then this main path kind of continues. We've got some existing trees that we're preserving. There's some existing oaks here and over on this side, as well as some smaller trees that we are trying to preserve along the edges here. And then as you get into the eastern half of the site, in this concept, we've got 2 basketball courts with a picnic area and a grill kind of adjacent to that, with some player benches on this side. We've got a portable restroom area here. And this could be potentially, if there was ever a future permanent restroom, it could go in this location as well. We do have some additional benches that overlook the basketball court. And then as you go towards South Euclid, this is kind of the low part of the park. And so this makes a natural spot for some stormwater management. So that means things like rain gardens. We would have the path kind of come dead ending into Euclid. So for those who live down to the south of Euclid can come and enter the park this way. There's a little bit of a grade change. It's kind of steeper at this corner. And so that's why this is further pushed up. And then we have kind of a larger entrance at the corner of Euclid and Eva. Again, using those seat walls to kind of enter. We do have another entrance kind of aligned with South St. Clair Street that comes in. We've got some bike racks at that location. You will notice throughout all of these concepts, we have this kind of dotted, these 2 dotted lines through the center. This is a utility easement, so we can't put too many things over those utilities, mostly just paving and perhaps some seat walls. We're still in talks with utility companies to make sure that we can do some sort of seat wall. And then we also have an entrance off of Eva Street. This semicircle shape here is kind of an entrance plaza coming off of South St. Clair Street at the corner of Eva and St. Clair. So that is the gist of concept, or the community confluence concept. So now I'm going to talk briefly about concept number 2, or what we call the green loop. And so you'll kind of notice that there's not much we can do on the left-hand side here, where we have the entrance from Negley's Avenue. So most of these look very similar on the left-hand side, with an entrance side sign there, and having the sidewalk in the center to kind of create some green buffer space between the new development and the existing building that's right here. But as you notice in the green loop, we've kind of rearranged things in that now the basketball courts are in the lower left-hand corner over here. We've got 1.5 courts, and that half court can also double and have pavement games, again, like Foursquare and other things like that for teenagers and younger kids to play on. We do still have some sort of picnic area that's associated with the basketball courts, 2 picnic tables and a grill. We've got restrooms across the main path coming through. And then we've got, kind of this north-south access that kind of juts through and connects South St. Clair Street through the site, again, having some sort of entrance plaza on this side. And then on this scheme, we have the playground and splash pad on the right side of this center avenue, center access here. And again, the pavilion, some variety of different seating. So we've got picnic tables, some natural seating areas, some typical benches on this side. And then we've got kind of a bench swing. So that's, kind of like your porch swing, but more, a little bit more sturdy for public use here, providing a different kind of seating area. And in this scheme, we've got the water fountain, trash receptacle, and bike racks kind of in the center kind of core gathering area that's underneath the existing trees. In this scheme, we have, it's called the green loop because we have kind of a loop that kids could use for scooters or tricycles or what have you. We've got a kind of an inner loop around the playground, but also this outer walking path that could also just be used as a walking path. So that creating that loop. Here we've got, we pulled this entrance closer to the existing property line here and put some stairs in. Again, needing some sort of rain garden, stormwater management here. We've got, maybe some stepping stones through the lawn that kind of creates a shortcut, because I can imagine people are going to want to cut through there. We've got again, another entrance plaza at the corner of South Euclid and Eva. And then in this scheme, we thought we would just see what everybody's thoughts were for providing some additional parallel parking spaces. There's about 4 or 5 spaces that we could potentially get here. There is no parking, I don't think, on this side as it is. This would just create a little bit more space for that. So that is an option in this scheme. And then finally, we have the last concept we're calling the neighborhood green. And this one's slightly different from the others in that we've got kind of this mound, we're calling it a sculptural mound. So imagine like just a berm that kind of weaves its way, starts at the entrance at Negley. The trees could be planted on that berm, kind of provides a little bit more of a buffer to the existing development, and that berm would kind of continue and and cross over into this space. And it kind of creates a little bit of a space here. We call this the grassy gathering. And you'll notice that this scheme is a little bit more formalized, kind of thinking about a village green. That's why we kind of call it the neighborhood green. We've got very formal access with a path system. And so we kind of create this upper quadrant here is mostly lawn and open space, with this sculptural mound kind of breaking up this one and creating different spaces and nooks over here. So this grassy gathering could be a place where kids could gather, families could gather. We've got some picnic tables and some various natural seating benches here. And then across from that, you can see we've got the splash pad area with some seat walls that kind of divide the splash pad up from the playground space on this side. Again, we've got some natural seating areas. Here's our pavilion right in the center, and water fountain and trash receptacles kind of associated with that pavilion. In this scheme, we've got the portable toilet enclosure area kind of off in the corner and not kind of in the center of the park. So it's a little bit farther away, you know, tucked away in this corner, which can be nice because it can be unsightly and could be stinky in hot summer sun. Then we've got on the right side, we've got 1.5 basketball courts with maybe some pavement games that could be associated with this half court or maybe extend down further. We do want to provide, you know, and keep a green buffer between this residential property and kind of the more noisy areas. So that's why, you know, this is not 2 full basketball courts. And then again, we have kind of a picnic area that's nicely shaded underneath the existing trees with a grill space here. And then this kind of open plaza between the 2 existing trees with bike racks and some benches in there. And then you can see that we've created this kind of formal long lawn space. So you can imagine somebody throwing a Frisbee or a football or what have you in this space up here. And then again, we've got rain gardens to capture stormwater from these spaces that kind of flank this entrance as you come in to the space. So that is briefly the 3 different concepts. You'll get a chance to kind of look at those in more detail in a minute. I do want to kind of go over, help you visualize a little bit more about what are the main features of the park are going to be. A lot of these things on this page are standard city elements like this bench. So these are the types of benches that will go into the park. We are thinking about seat walls, and we don't know exactly what they're going to look like yet, or if we can put them in. So it could be concrete or stone block seat walls. We will definitely have some picnic tables, both regular and accessible. This is the type of pavilion, the typical city standard picnic pavilion. We've got, obviously, here's the trash receptacle and recycling, the water fountain, some sort of basketball court here. If we put in restrooms, this is kind of what we're thinking of having some sort of fence around them so it's not too unsightly. And we've got what the grill would look like, typical lighting, a rain garden down here, and then the bike racks. We could have a little bit of fun with those if we want. We could do something that mimics the whale sculpture that we know is going to go into the spray park area, or just do regular standard bike racks there. So these are the kinds of things we can imagine for the spray park. We know the community has expressed an interest in reusing the whale, and so we will definitely do that and have a variety of different spray features to go along with it. We will be asking you shortly in our breakout rooms what your preference is for the different types of playground styles. And so we've kind of created some precedent images here. The first one on the upper left is more of a contemporary style playground. The one on the right, upper right, is what we're calling just sculptural style, having some sort of main sculptural feature like this in the center. On the lower left, we've got more of a natural style. So you can see the bold kind of boulders and the faux wood here. And then on the lower right is what we're calling the net style. So there's a lot of new playground features and equipment that are these giant net, kind of complex net sculptures that you could put slides off of each end here and other attachments to it, but you can kind of get the idea of having some sort of wavy net piece that could be part of the playground. And so again, you'll be able to see these images again later, but we will want your input on which you like the most there. Some other features that we're thinking about, obviously I talked about natural seating in all three concepts. So we're thinking of using some trees that were taken down to create seating, whether it's kind of stumps like this or like a bench like over here, something like that, to create just different types of seating areas, something that the kids would think is are fun to kind of sit on and sit in groups. The third concept where we talked about that berm, that mound, that sculptural mound. So this is kind of what that could look like. Not exactly in this exact shape, but you can see the kind of gentle rise and dipping down again on the other side to create that berm that would still be able to be mowed and maintained, but kind of creates, an interesting space between the berms. We talked about pavement games, and we will get into in our next community meeting. We would love your input on exactly what specific pavement games you would like to include, other potential features, things like bocce, or this is I think called bank shot, just, variety of different ways of trying to get a basketball into different types of hoops and backboard configurations. And so we will ask for your input on those, but you can imagine that some of these features could be included as well. That's something that will be included is some sort of art piece. This is just an example of an art piece. It's not what we're proposing for this, but an artist will be selected to kind of join our team and start to develop concepts for a future art piece for the park. So stay tuned for that. So I want to make sure that we're moving along and get your input. So I want to stop talking. We're going to now go into different breakout rooms. There's, let's see, we've got about 13. Actually, I don't know. Andrea, do you think, should we go into different breakout rooms or should we just stick into one? There's not as many as.
I think we'd be fine to stay in one, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we've got
time.
I think we've got time and I think it'll be good. So great. We don't have to mess with breakout rooms. We can just jump in.
And people can use the chat as well if you aren't, getting your voice heard or don't feel like speaking up. Feel free to type in the chat as well.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for pointing that out, Andrea. If you have any questions or comments along the way and want to put them in the chat, please do. But we'd love to hear from you as well via voice here. So I'm going to now, this is our what we call a jam board. But this allows us to take notes while we talk with you and go through these concepts. So I think what I'd like to do is our main goals for tonight are to get input on the concepts, kind of figure out which concept the public would like to see the most. And kind of, what about that concept do you like the most? What don't you like? Maybe there's something about another, one of the other concept plans that you like, but you want to, maybe we combined a couple of features from both. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to get input on the playground style. And we can look at those images again in a little bit after we kind of go through this. But is there anybody who wants to kind of speak up and has a thought on which concept you like most? I can kind of zoom in here and go through them. If you want to see one or two in more detail, we can totally do that as well. Anybody have any thoughts? Just going to look at the chat here real quickly. Oh, yes.
Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm assuming you don't want us to chime in on our favorite, right?
No. So Kara mentioned that these concepts can also be found on the website. And there is, here's the link to the website is in the chat. And there's also a survey that asks very similar questions that we're asking tonight. So if you would like to go and provide input, additional input after this meeting there, by all means, we encourage you. Here's a question. Does the city have plans to install sanitary water bottle filling stations in addition to drinking fountains? Andrea, I think that would be,
I answered. Yeah, I answered it. That's not currently part of our standard, but we have installed them in other locations. And if that's something that the community wants for Enright, then we can certainly install it in this park as well.
Hi, this is Jennifer Haven. I was the one that asked that question. I love the idea that you have to separate the restrooms with that little bit of a wall there to kind of not seal it off, but kind of separate it a little bit, because as you said, they are kind of unsightly. They get spray painted eventually. They start to smell, and I do, if it's at all possible, I would love to have a water bottle filling station there. More and more, I think people are using water bottles just in general life. But since the pandemic, I think it would be really smart for the city in any of the new parks to install those, because it's really challenging for someone to go and, you're not going to keep buying bottles of water if you're playing on the court all day long. If you're a mom and you're coming with your kids, it's the same thing. You're not really going to feel comfortable anymore lifting your kid up and your kid is like sucking off the water fountain thing. I mean, we were never comfortable with that. It was never a great idea, but now it seems like even worse of an idea. And then I'll let
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, if that could really be one of the, I mean, it seems like a small priority, but if we can do that, that'd be awesome. I'm gonna let some other neighbors chime in, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I like about the different designs as well. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So just looking at the chat, we've got a couple more comments here. So Elizabeth said, I like the last concept in the sculptural playground. So the last concept being this one here, that's the neighborhood green. Elizabeth, I don't know if you have any specific comments of why you like this one, and what makes this one most interesting to you.
I couldn't explain it. I just liked it. So
Okay.
it's hard to see three things, and it's like maybe you pick the most recent one. I don't know. I like it. All fine.
Okay.
Cultural ground was different. You want something that's a little more modern, I guess.
Sure. Thank you. John said, I'd like to hear what neighbors think of the relative merits of locating the playground or basketball courts closest to the St. Clair's entrance to the park. Do you mean John, do you mean the South St. Clair down by Topaz, or?
I'm referring to residential neighbors, whether I can think of all sorts of questions of wanting to have eyes on the playground, convenient to residents, wanting to have the noise of ball games as far away from front doors as possible. I'm willing to go with those who are most immediately affected by these location decisions. I see merits to all three plans.
Does anybody want to comment about what John just said, or have any thoughts on that? Because they do, all three concepts kind of shift the basketball courts and playground around in different locations. And certainly if you live closer to one or the other, or you might have something to say. Obviously we've got the basketball courts kind of closest to, there's an apartment house right here, and a residential house right here. We know that obviously we've got additional residential here across from the existing community garden. This one kind of just swaps the two. The playground's a little bit farther away from the residential, but this here, the basketball courts are kind of crammed in this corner closest to the alley. And then on the community confluence one, we've got the basketball courts really much closer to the existing development. And then the playground kind of tucked in this corner. So does anybody have any comments on which they prefer as far as location wise for those features?
Hi, this is Steve Quick. There's some aspects of all three schemes that have very nice features, just knowing how our kids used the park as they were growing up. With some respects, it's nice to have the basketball courts near Eva, because there's a lot of use of them on the weekend from people who use cars to come to the basketball courts. And so parking away from the neighborhood on Eva Street would make a lot of sense. I like the feature about the loop, because our kids used to take their tricycles and ride on the loop that was in the existing Enright Park all around, and kept them pretty busy. So whether it's a bicycle or tricycles, having that loop meant we could keep our eye on them while they ran the circuit. I like the idea of the long lawn. As our kids grew up, we threw baseballs, and there was very little space for that in the existing park. And we used a green space that was really off of Amber to do that. But having the long park also allows for football games and other things to happen as well. So, but in the community or the community one, the community green one, I like the clustering of creating a space that's really dedicated to children and the shelter and the other activities, so that you can be in one area congregating and have eyes in a lot of locations.
You said you liked, it was this one that you liked that?
I think the congregation and the clustering of all the things together makes a lot of sense. I don't like where the restrooms are located, simply because I'd rather have them more in where more eyes could be on them, rather than tucked in a corner. But the idea of creating a gathering, a central green, even though it's the playground and the things around it, I think that makes a nice center, rather than scattering things across the park.
So you like that fact about this one here, this
Right.
scheme, the neighborhood green.
I like the idea of the long lawn. I would just flip with this one, put the basketball courts up on Eva and the long lawn on the, it would be the south side.
Okay. Who else has some comments? We've got some additional chat here. So we've got, are there maintenance concerns about the sculptural berms? Can city crews easily mow them? That's a very good, a very good question. We would design the berms to be very kind of gentle sloping. And so typically you can mow a 3-to-1 slope or 4-to-1 slope. And so we would keep those berms at those slopes and make sure that kind of a 5-foot wide mower would be able to easily mow them. Oh, there, Andrea's already got on top of it. Sorry, Andrea.
That's okay.
Also, will overhead utilities that are currently on south side of Eva be buried or relocated?
So
Yeah.
I
Go
can
ahead.
answer that one. I think I did talk with the construction manager for the development, and they are not planning to relocate the utilities or bury those utilities. And they've already received their approvals and permits for the work in Eva Street. So that will not be happening at this time.
Okay, and then Jennifer said, I also like the sculptural concept, but wonder whether the neighbors would mind the basketball courts being unbuffered. So there's another question about, you know, how close the basketball courts are to the residential area here. I think that's a very valid point. I also love the loop. My kids love to ride the sidewalk path around the original Enright. Loop, long lawn, and clustering the playground gathering areas. All right, those are all great comments. Anybody else have any comments they want to share in the chat? I can flip through these again if you would like to look at them closer. So I wanted to go back to what everybody was saying about clustering the play and gathering areas. And I'm wondering, because I feel like, you know, in this one, we've got the pavilion kind of like really in the center between this kind of gatherings, this gathering space and the playground area. This concept, the playground is kind of off to the side, but the playground is definite, or the pavilion's off to the edge, but the playground and kind of core gathering space are kind of clustered together. And And then in this concept, again, we've got kind of, you know, a core gathering with some pavement games and the playground and play and pavilion kind of all clustered together. And so I was curious as to exactly which concept that, you know, which kind of, do you like the playground or the pavilion kind of in the center of everything? Like this one, you know, from the pavilion, you can be within earshot of the pavement games or the playground or the splash pad or this kind of seating area. This one, the pavilion's kind of more of kind of on the edge of kind of a lawn space where, again, people could throw a football in this space as well. But, you know, also, you know, so this is just a slightly different use of the pavilion. So it's not as close to the core gathering space as the other ones, especially this one, you know, the pavilion's kind of like smack dab in the middle of everything. So I'm curious as to if this is the one that the kind of the configuration that most people like, or if it's a different configuration.
I that configuration, but it might just be, as another attendee had said, I like that vibe. Like she wasn't exactly sure how to describe, like, why did she like it? I love that the shape of the spray park is around, and I love the natural flowing that thing that you had described about yes, that thing there.
Mhm.
It just looks very natural to me. I am not a fan of what you had remarked earlier, the different playground types, as much of a sculptural look. You know, I like a natural playground. This seems very natural to me. It just seems like you can find your own fun when you have playgrounds that are shaped in fun ways and have fun curves. And as kids grow older, you know, and playground equipment maybe becomes a little too babyish for them, you can still find different ways to have fun when you have sculptural elements around.
Okay. Anybody else have any last thoughts on the concepts before we talk a little bit more into what Jennifer just alluded to, is the style of the playground itself?
This is Steve Quick again. I like the idea of this community green one from another perspective. You can sit in the shelter area and see everything. And so there's sometimes there's not a whole lot of people in the park, and to create spaces which are off and somebody can't see you well, I think is a potential danger. What I also like about two of the schemes is you've begun to buffer the development, the Angelus development and their parking lot from the playground. And if there's a way to get a solid fence there, because that's all going to be parking along all of that entire edge from St. Clair to Amber. And if there's a way to buffer that visually, would be great. And I like the idea of the trees there, but I see it as really being able to visually close that off.
So wanting a more of a buffer, or a bigger buffer along here.
No, between the parking lot, which is down at the bottom there. That's all. And the building that's to the south of the center green is going to have parking in the back. So that's all going to be parking along that edge. And it's not a pretty sight. And so the more we can buffer that view from the park into those private properties, that we'd be happier.
So so a buffer right along here.
along all the property line edge from Amber to St. Clair
This right here
and the other half, that right there too.
and this area here.
Right.
Yeah, because we've got the community garden is right here. Okay.
Is it there?
Yes, yes.
Are you?
Yeah, the community garden. So this little, we can zoom in. This space, so there's that pull-in parking right here, and then this is the community garden.
Oh,
This
okay.
is that existing parking area that's just, yeah, all blacktop and,
Then
yeah,
you have to have the fence then across from the community garden. I was misreading the plan.
okay. Yeah,
And I think it's nice that a couple of the schemes bring the community garden into the purview of the park.
hmm,
So we begin to see that the park is visually a little larger.
okay. Anybody else have any last comments on this? It sounds like everybody likes a lot of the benefits of this scheme, but kind of don't like the fact that the basketball courts are so close to the residential area here. So if we found a way to shift them up and created the kind of a long lawn on this side, that would be more preferable. It would, I think we could probably figure out a way of doing that somehow, and still providing access, to this street here. And okay, definitely a green loop. Yes, so we've got a comment about looking at the green loop one more time.
Yeah, is there a way that we could do what you were just talking about and also add a green loop to that? Because I like the layout of this green loop plan, but the most important thing I like about it is that walking track or riding of your scooter track or pushing of your stroller track, like around.
Sure. Yeah, I think we could include that in this scheme somehow. Certainly, I think, we could figure out a way of providing some sort of looping path. We could definitely make some modifications to this one to kind of create a looping path, if these basketball courts were kind of shifted up, we could do a looping path over here, or maybe that looping path goes around the basketball courts, or maybe it's incorporated with a sculptural mound. So we could do something where, say, this, could be a looping path.
I think that you've got a 3-year-old on a tricycle or a 4-year-old on a tricycle. You want to keep them within eyesight. So it doesn't have to be as big as the whole park.
Yeah.
That it's a loop. And I think that the one thing that I like about this scheme, not necessarily the formality of it, but the fact that you're starting to use that one section that's in the upper left-hand corner and engage that. All the other two schemes kind of just leave it without touching it. This brings playground and the other features into that section also. So I think it's a much better active use of the park. See, that's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so this one you're saying you don't like as much because we're kind of leaving this open and just kind of.
That's right. It's just the leftover space.
Leftover space, yeah.
Sarah, there's a couple other comments in the chat here. I want to make sure that we highlight before we run out of time.
So reiterate comment from previous, so that parking spaces are likely to be taken by residents rather than being left open for park users. So that comment is, I think, in regards to the future parking spaces that will be along Eva Street. That, if if I'm reading that right.
I think it's for the parallel spaces. Maybe.
Oh, on here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
yes.
Angelique, do
So-
you want to clarify? I think that's what she means, but that's
I
what
think
we had
you're-
talked about last.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I think, so,
Yeah, hi, sorry, this is Angelique. I've been chatting rather than talking, but I was referring to those, that line of parallel, yes, those on Topaz
Yeah.
Street. The parking pressures in our neighborhood are such that I think that those will either be used by residents or by the people who use our neighborhood as a parking lot for their workplaces in East Liberty. And I would rather not encourage that.
yeah.
We'll probably have to have ADA spaces there, right?
So we could, so I think what we're gonna do is talk with Domi, and there is space along South Euclid of their proposed, bike lane and reconfiguration of Euclid, that we could put parallel parking spaces on Euclid, and we could designate one of those as an ADA space.
Accessible, yeah.
Accessible space. Oop, don't, that's about, provide parking in the park. There we go. Okay.
Trying
So-
to talk and type at the same time.
Yeah, let's see if there's any other comments. So, okay, so Angelique, did you have any other comments about what you specifically liked about this plan? Because I know you said you were leaning towards the green loop plan.
Yeah, actually, Jason and I were just having an on mute discussion about it. And it's, I know I said before that I like the long lawn, but as I think about it, and as Jason and I are talking about it, I feel like this sort of oval shaped lawn, you could do the same kinds of things that you could do in the long lawn. But as Jason pointed out, the proportion of open space to perimeter space is kind of nicer here. It just, a little bit like as Jennifer was saying about having an organically shaped playground, it just provides in some ways a richer experience than having a rectangular playground. I think that's the way we're feeling about the more organically shaped lawn, is you can be at the edges under the trees, or people can be in the center in various configurations, playing, sunbathing, picnicking, or whatever. It just seems like it provides more opportunities for different kinds of use of the lawn than a long rectangular lawn. Just sort of thinking back to how the park used to be and how we did have that long lawn, but people really didn't use that space as much as they used the more kind of organic space that was a little deeper into the park. And I think that's more what I would like to see recreated in the new park.
And yeah, it's an interesting comment. So more of a variety of uses and seeding kind of opportunities.
But I think it seems like it's big enough that you could still throw a ball or do some of those like more spacious activities.
I would agree with that. I think, this is, it's a little bit wider than the long lawn in the in this neighborhood green concept. And might provide a little bit more flexibility in some of that. Certainly what we could do, I know, people talked about liking the fact that the pavilion maybe want to be more centralized. We could put the pavilion, right here and move the playground out, and have the playground out here. And so that would kind of, accommodate what people were liking about this concept, with the pavilion kind of being in the center, that you could, all parties could use it. You could see everything from the center of that pavilion. And certainly if we wanted to create, if people really like this sculptural mound, we could do something with that in here potentially. It might be a little bit difficult. We don't want to take up too much of this kind of open lawn space, but we could do, maybe a mounding kind of over here to create a space maybe along the edges to kind of here and there. I wouldn't want to do a, kind of a circle this whole thing, but maybe create a little bit of interest and maybe even a more of a buffer on this side. If we don't do the parking here, we might be able to do some sort of interesting mound shape on this side that might coincide with the play area that kids could climb on and roll down and something like that. So we could do something like that in this scheme if that's what people are really interested in.
And this is Angelique again, just thinking as I'm looking at this and thinking about your saying earlier that there will be some kind of art sculptural installation. The one piece of this layout that looks a little bit like lost space to me is right off of Amber Street, where you have that curved path coming in. Right below that, yes, right there. I wonder if that might actually be a nice, I just would suggest or nominate that for a place for a sculpture, because it is right at the Amber Street entrance of the park. And it looks like kind of such a small space that I'm not sure what it would be used for otherwise.
Right now, that space is being used for people to take their dogs off leash.
Yeah, the one thing that this scheme is a little bit more cramped with the basketball courts right up against the fence here. And so, it's a little bit, a little bit closer. We just don't have the space and we can't get it too far. We can't have the fencing that's needed for the basketball courts to be within the utility line. And so that's a little bit, of an issue on this one. But we could certainly do something, maybe an interesting fence that might be a backdrop for the basketball court. So I think that's something that we could address and deal with. Any other final comments? We're very, we're right on time here. Almost done with this. I wanted to really quickly get everybody's thoughts. Again, here's all the kind of the images for the different precedent images, and I didn't know if we had some thoughts on. We liked the natural style. I don't know if there's any other comments of people who are interested in any of these other styles of playgrounds.
You like the what? Which one is that?
What you think about natural rather than.
Oh, the one with the wood. This one down here.
Yeah, I guess. I think I heard natural and sculptural. Right? Somebody mentioned sculptural.
Yeah, in the very beginning, somebody mentioned sculptural in the beginning. I don't know if others have thoughts on this, and certainly you can take the survey after this, and if you want to contemplate it more, you can kind of vote on the survey which you like the most.
If
Now
that
let's
was me,
segue. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jennifer.
no, I was just going to say, if that was me, I think that I had said that I didn't care for the sculpture, and I prefer the natural, but maybe somebody else had also said that they liked the sculptural. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. And I also was wondering if they were referring to the more sculptural aesthetic of the third layout. So yeah, if people wanted to say what type of playground style you like, if you have a preference.
Well, that seems like a good segue point to wrap up and point everyone to the Engage PGH website. So you want to go to the last slide? Okay, so as we previously mentioned and is pasted in the chat, we'll be utilizing our Engage PGH website to post updates to the project and the community survey that'll be live after this meeting. And we've also recorded this first meeting, and we'll post it to the Engage page as well. So if there are any neighbors or friends that weren't able to attend tonight's meeting, please be sure to pass along that information so that they can get up to speed on the project. We'll keep the survey open until Friday, August 20th. So it's 4 weeks, I believe, that 4 weeks from tomorrow that we'll close it. And so the plan is to take the results of the community feedback and consolidate into one design concept that will then return for a second community meeting sometime this fall to present that concept, and then some further details on the play equipment and pavement games like Sarah had mentioned. Thanks everyone for attending tonight, and thanks to Pashik MTR for pulling together the plans for tonight. And keep an eye out on Engage for additional information on our next meeting. So we'll once we are ready to schedule that, we'll convene a date and post a registration similar to how we did tonight. So thank you everyone, and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Great feedback.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Andrea.
All right,
Can
thanks,
we
Andrea.
stop recording? Okay.